Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the NAMI and Juneau Suicide Prevention Coalition Let's Talk About series. This has been a month-long series. I can't believe that we are close to the end of this month-long journey of celebrating the the Suicide Prevention Month. And what we have been doing is inviting numerous guests from our community in order to just connect the amazing people and the amazing support and services that we have. Our hope is to, certainly if you need services, to connect you in that way. Also for organizations to connect with each other so that we can do this great lift in our community in supporting one another, and for volunteers. So today we have with us Ati Nasiah and David Abad from AWARE, and they are going to give us some talk about Toóch Lichéesh. We believe it is possible. So again, I want to thank you for joining us, and I would like to mention that if you are on Facebook and you are interested in closed captioning, if you hit the Zoom link, you can come into the Zoom room and connect that way, and we are providing the closed captioning version. Just hit the CC button at the bottom, and soon you should see some information come up in chats of what's available in that way. The other thing that I'd like to say is throughout today's presentation, put your questions in chat. If you have questions, likely we all have questions, so please put those questions in chat. It makes things go a little bit nicer for us so that we know that we're on track and on target and meeting your needs. So again, this is Juneau Suicide Prevention, and our hope is to connect our people as well as reduce stigma around suicide and mental health, and to promote mental health. So with that, I would like to introduce Ati.
Thank you, Tina. What an honor to share space with you today, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here with my coalition co-chair, David Abad, and just really grateful for this opportunity. So, thank you. So my name is Ati Nasiah. I'm the Prevention Director at AWARE, and I have had the honor and privilege of working at AWARE for over 13 years, and also have the real honor to work with and alongside David. And before we begin in unpacking and sharing some of the good work of the coalition, we just wanted to start with a land acknowledgement. And so I'm going to share with you the land acknowledgement that we often use when we bring coalition partners together or host events. So thank you for taking a moment and finding your breath and feeling your body and feeling the earth that your body is standing on or sitting on or being on. Toóch Lichéesh, we believe it is possible, resides on the unceded territories of the Acknowledgement and Toóch on what is currently known as Juneau and Douglas, Alaska. We acknowledge that Tlingit peoples have been stewards of this land since time immemorial, and we are grateful for that stewardship and incredible care. We recognize the series of unjust actions and attempts to remove them from their land, which includes forced relocation, the burning of villages. We honor the complex relationship that exists between Tlingit people, their lands, their ancestors, and future generations. We aspire to work toward healing and liberation, recognizing our paths are intertwined in the complex histories of colonization in Alaska. We acknowledge that we arrived here by listening to the people's, elders, lessons of the past, and these stories carry us as we weave a healthier world for future generations. So in this way, maybe we can take a moment and let that land acknowledgement, let our hearts feel that land acknowledgement and extend those feelings out to our neighbors, to our relatives. Much has happened on Tlingit Ani, and part of the work of Toóch Lichéesh is working with elders and partners to understand the history of this place and to create opportunities for deeper healing and transformation across the community. So thank you for helping us start in a good way.
Thank you, Ati. Thank you, Gunishchish.
Yeah. So, shall we dive in and give a little overview of the coalition?
Let's do that.
David, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, well, I first probably should introduce myself. So I'm David Abad. As my introduction just floats away from my brain. Let's see. And I'm the prevention coordinator over at AWARE. Haven't been with them for very long. I mean, I guess not as long as Ati, close to 2 years now. So, and have been involved in different capacities even prior to working officially with AWARE. So I was doing a lot of volunteering. I was really on this journey of like, what does the community have to offer, which I found so much when you just start talking and start connecting people in a genuine way. And especially in like the work of whether you, I mean, it's all intertwined, whether it's social justice, decolonization, you know, reconnection of, you know, I'm Filipino. My parents are immigrants from the Philippines, but both moved here individually. They met here in Juneau. So yeah, and I have a big family, you know, we all kind of like made our way or just started families here, at least my parents and their siblings. And so I grew up here in Juneau, throughout the schools, throughout the entire, you know, school journey up until, you know, finishing high school. And I've been back for five years now. And that really was like just the start of like really coming back and kind of giving Juneau a, in my mind, it was a chance, because at first I was like, I need to leave, I need to explore, I need to do something, which now I think about it, it's like, it wasn't a great relationship of how I was approaching, you know, how I was moving, how I was leaving. So when I came back to Juneau, I was like, I want to know the people. I want to be in community, be in genuine community. And that was really, that has been the past 5 years. It was like, how do I be in community? How do I learn? How do I listen? That's one of the biggest things. And I mean, yeah, continuing to deconstruct things that I've like grown up, you know, all the patterns that I, you know, maybe I was hurting people unintentionally. So it's really like, how do I stop? How do I, yeah, it has definitely been a journey. And I'm, you know, I don't expect myself to ever stop. So it's, yeah, I'm committed to this, you know, lifelong journey of just listening and reconnecting with myself and really healing, you know, ancestors and just like getting to know them. I don't even, yeah, there's so much I have to learn, but I'm excited. So, yeah, I didn't really expect to say all that, but
I love that, being in community, right? I mean, that's where we're healthy. That's what it's all about, which is what brings us together, why we're here today. I love that, David.
yeah, and I mean, a lot of that is really, when I think about the coalition, you know, the work, it is also providing those opportunities for people that do engage with the coalition to, like, how can we be how can we help you? How can we, and through any capacity, really, it's like, how do we help you you know, connect with others. It's all tied up together when I think about like, you know, like, can we create capacity for people's healing? You know, we can't necessarily say like, we heal you, but it's like, how can we create the environment that you can start to see your own healing, whatever that may look like. You know, there's so, healing can be, depending on how you see it, but it's like, you know, you can heal through your own creative work, your creative juices that you have inherently. You can heal through what you have at your fingertips, your own voice, your stories, sharing, tell it. So it's like, whatever that looks like for you, it's like, how do we create a space that welcomes all of that? And yeah, and hopefully meet new people in the community that are, and not just like in Juneau. I know that we've, you know, when I think back, it's like we've connected with people across the state, and but really, who can we, yeah, just like who can we connect people with more genuinely, or just expand their circles, or little hard, now that I say that, it's like, oh, a little hard now, but that's the goal. Maybe it's done virtually, so.
A little bit hard now, and we are so deeply committed to it, and in the ways that feel safe and right for our beloved community. Dang, what an introduction. I love it.
And what's so beautiful about it, David, too, is that, you know, that is the effort of what we try to do, but sometimes we fail to say that, you know, that's what we're about. That's what we're trying to do. And we know that connection is a protective factor, right? For all of us, for our mental health, our spiritual health, our social health, all of that. So now, and I'm understanding that Toóch, Lichéesh is a great place to do that, and a safe place to do that.
Safe is kind of an interesting word. We strive to create environments for bravery. We recognize that that safety isn't found for all people in this world that is so deeply embedded in systems of oppression. And so we can't guarantee safe spaces, but we do strive to create spaces for bravery and for authentic conversation and for wholehearted work. And, you know, and in drawing out that protective factor of connectedness, I think that really is at the root of the coalition's vision and mission. You know, our vision is a socially just community in a reciprocal, healthy relationship with the land and with each other. And understanding reciprocity is a journey. And understanding that reciprocal relationship with the plants and the animals and the land that you stand on, with your neighbors, it's a process. And we've discovered that we learn a little, and then we go a little deeper, and we learn a little more, and we go a little deeper, and and our relationships move at the speed of trust, and trust takes time to build. And so we strive to work to create and build that trust across the community with our partners, and do work that is both healing for individuals, but also really working to sort of grow out of that sense of healing meaningful efforts that can strengthen the community and uplift youth, and reorient the current narratives, uplift survivors' voices, lean on the wisdom of our elders. And so as a coalition, we're really lucky. We've been guided by Della Cheney, who is a beloved elder who lives in Juneau, who's a master, brilliant weaver and writer and storyteller. And she's loving and fierce, and helps keep our feet to the ground and the fire. And then we've also been really deeply guided by the James's family. So Colleen and Lyle and their daughter Corinne. Colleen was a key partner in the creation of Toóch Lichéesh. Originally, Toóch Lichéesh was the Juno Violence Prevention Coalition. We started that coalition about 15 years ago at AWARE with a commitment to focus on primary prevention. So really wanting to not just respond to the needs of survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, but also wanting to go upstream and think about and do work that changes the climate and conditions for that violence to occur so we could be more preventative in our efforts. And the Juno Violence Prevention Coalition did a lot of amazing things. They brought programs like Girls on the Run to the state of Alaska, programs like Coaching Boys into Men, meaningful initiatives that many of which continue to grow and thrive. But one of the things that the Juno Violence Prevention Coalition didn't do is some of the work around decolonization. And so, unintentionally, we were upholding some white supremacist values and practices. And it really took some beautiful and fierce leaders like Colleen and Della to help guide some of that work of decolonization, to help bring forth Toóch Lichéesh. And so Toóch Lichéesh is a coalition that's supported by AWARE. So it continues to be supported by AWARE staff and AWARE as an organization. But the vision, mission, and values have been co-created by a beautiful, rich, diverse circle of amazing human beings that are committed to that inner and outer transformation work and creating that community of care that we so deeply believe in. And so I might take a moment and just share my screen and share with you. So the coalition, you can see this beautiful logo. This is art that was developed by Andrea Cook. And she was mentored by master carver Wayne Price. And so you can see these hands that are both to protect, but also to lift up. And the forget-me-not is both the Alaska state flower, but also this commitment that we will never forget the missing and murdered Indigenous women, the historical and intergenerational traumas that continue to unfold across our state, those that are most impacted by racism, sexism, and violence of oppression. And so Andrea, under the guidance of Wayne, created this beautiful piece for us. And she just finished our drum, so we can sing this vision and mission to life. So that's really exciting. And so our vision, as I shared, is a socially just community in a reciprocal relationship with the land and each other. And the mission is to be guided by the wisdom of our ancestors. We reckon with injustice and commit to healing and liberation while honoring our interdependence. Together, we are imagining and creating a community free from violence. And, violence is a really big word. And, at AWARE, we often talk about violence as the dynamics of domestic violence and sexual assault. But as we've continued on our journey of decolonization, we really come to understand that violence is much deeper than that, and it's embedded in these systems of oppression. And so, we are zooming out to understand that violence is maintained within systems of oppression, and seen as racism, it's seen as sexism, it's seen as teen dating violence, it's seen as our own self-doubt and self-hatred that is a result of the internalization of those forms of oppression. And so again, as David was speaking to earlier, our work across the coalition is about it's about changing those systems of oppression, but also healing our hearts and healing together across the community, and finding a good way forward that honors both the depth of our history and also the need for our ancestors, the need for healing both for our ancestors and our future grandchildren. So, you know, we're guided by some really beautiful values. I wonder if we want to spend a minute talking about those values. And then maybe we can move into some of the, you know, what some of the work looks like kind of on the ground as we move into action.
That sounds good.
Do you want to talk a little bit with me, David, about some of the values that have been maybe most important to your heart and your journey?
Yeah, I'll just have to find them, unless you want to pull them
Oh,
up.
sure, I can pull them up. Yeah.
I feel like I know them, but it's always a good, instead of probably doing all 10 of them, I'll pick like a good one or highlight one.
So the values are decolonization, nothing for us without us, equity and inclusivity, respect, honoring generations, although I want to acknowledge we just learned that the translation there is not quite accurate. And so I wonder if I can edit where, wow. This is about honoring generations, but in Tlingit, that more accurate translation is our ancestors. Vulnerability, lifting each other up, healing and accountability, intentionality, courage, and transformation.
Yeah, I don't know if I can pick one. They're all, I mean, for me, I guess, you know, even the first one is the biggest one, and I kind of mentioned it in, you know, saying, or I mentioned it earlier in the introduction around like my journey with decolonization, and there's so much to it. It's so layered, because even like, you know, I can be on a journey of decolonization, but who I learned that from, you know, like I wasn't raised in a decolonized way. So really I have to, for myself, I have to notice like, where does colonization show up? And then those, like, especially the indigenous voices, indigenous leaders, they're the ones who taught me how. So, you know, similarly in our practice, like those are the ones who should be guiding us into this journey of decolonization. And yeah, and it just continues to evolve and learn, and not necessarily specific to the coalition, but even in my own journey of just like, you know, finding, you know, decolonization in regards to like Filipino spirituality. That's new. I just discovered that kind of, I mean, it's new to me. I'm sure it has existed, but it's like, you know, during this time I was able to connect with groups out in like across Turtle Island and mainly in the lower 48 of just Filipinos who are just sharing their knowledge and offering these free or just like these free spaces for Filipinos to get together. And I was just like, so I'm learning this other realm of decolonization I've never even knew existed. Like I knew it existed, but it's just like I didn't know how to tap into that. So that's one, you know, benefit of you know, everything transitioning to whether it's Zoom or online, although the circumstances aren't ideal, you know, we're in this global pandemic, but the ways in which services, you know, everyone's changing their approach to how do you engage community, how do you continue to reconnect. And while virtually is like the safest, it's like, yeah, it can also be hard, but there are spaces out there that are being created, and, you know, just kind of have to look for them. You know, luckily there's some great spaces here in Juneau too, like not just through the coalition, but a lot of organizations, and you know, we do want to, and we'll probably share some of those later. But yeah, just thinking about, you know, the meaning of decolonization.
Actually, David, I was wondering if we could have, for some that may not know, what is a good, simple working definition of decolonization, and why is this work important, and who is it important to?
Woo!
Woo!
Can I quote?
I mean, Ati, if you have one, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking about something that I have heard Colleen James say a lot, which is that decolonization is an act of love. And if you spend the time to look into some of the characteristics of colonization and patriarchy, and kind of that white supremacist culture that we have inherited, all of us, and been impacted by, all of us. You know, I've come to understand that decolonization is, you know, like we did with that land acknowledgement, understanding what happened across our country and within our own community, and understanding the ways in which organizations, schools, and systems have embedded and upheld the values of white supremacy and patriarchy within those systems. And so I have understood that decolonization is an act of love, and it's for everyone. And what that looks like based on your identities might be different, right? So the work for me as a white Jewish woman to decolonize is going to look different than it would for you, Tina, or you, David, or but each of us has work around the healing and accountability of the impacts of colonization and how to be in right relationship with both ourselves, our history, and each other. And within that, I think each of us has a different role. And like I said earlier in my experience, I have learned a little, and then my world kind of flips upside down, and then I start to understand a little bit, and then I learn a little more, and it happens again. And so for me, it's been a slow and fumbling journey towards deeper understanding, and then repair for and when I've caused harm in my misunderstanding, sort of based on my own privilege and the ways that has made me blind. You know, I've done, you know, more than one thing where my intention is good, but my impact has upheld racism or sexism or violence. And so I continue in a commitment to know better, to learn more, and to try to work to align my values with my actions in that healing process. And yeah, I definitely feel like I learn more every day, and I feel humbled by how much I have still to learn, but so grateful for the opportunity to practice these values with others. And I'm sure people watching this know Juneau is packed full of brilliant, loving, fierce, determined, dedicated, kind human beings. And we continue to learn more from each other when we listen deeply and show up. And so I've been so grateful to share spaces with such amazing leaders as we have in Juneau and across Alaska on this journey of learning and decolonization.
Thank you, Ati. You know, one of the things too that and I'm sure you're getting to this, but how does this work and these values connect with the ending violence, promoting overall wellness for individuals as well as for the community? And what does the work look like? What is the work? There's healing ourselves, and then there's work that we do that births out of the coalition.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, before we jump to that, I wonder, David, if you have anything else you wanted to add to that colonization question. It's such a big one and it's so important. I want to make sure we hear your voice if you have thoughts to share on this in this moment.
I'm sure I did. And then as I tried to get them back, they kind of disappeared. But there's so much to say. There's so much to say. It's like, from what I understand, it's a newer term, and maybe that term will evolve. Maybe the term will change. I mean, there's so many people that are just, so rooted in their values already, that they're already connected with their ancestors. And not to say they don't have work to, the work looks so differently across everyone, across cultures, across peoples. And some people, like, for those, like myself, who's like, while I get to learn, that learning in a way is like a privilege to just continue to learn. And so it's a hard and complex term, but for some people, that's like their life. It's, I could talk. So, I mean, my mind is like, this and that, but, but I think I'll just stop before I get too lost and dig myself out.
So Tina, this next question you asked, can you just restate? You're asking about how this value comes to life and like what the work looks like for us.
Yeah, well, and how it links to ending violence. How does the work link to ending violence and overall wellness for individuals as well as our community as a whole? How does the work that you do, what is that work and how does it relate to that? Sorry.
Thank you. Those are great questions. David, if you have thoughts or reflections, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I keep thinking, but there's so many ways in which we engage with the community. So, like whether that's, and the work is constantly changing. I think, it's hard to keep up with the changing world. And, having that adaptability, or just that, like, how do we put people first? How do you center voices that are least heard? So I just think about like, the different types of work that we engage with, or the groups or the community members or partners across organizations. Yeah, I guess, Ati, if you have a specific thing, maybe I can help, or I can add on to that. But yeah, I think it's just, being, Toóch Lichéesh being kind of newer, we're like still, we're still learning, we're still finding the ways to, how to engage with this community. It's like, how do you, just how do you engage with this community and continue to support or lift or, create opportunities that are, that people need. And even thinking about like, while we strive for, we want to see change. I think that's the goal. It's like, how can like our efforts create change, whatever that may look like. And sometimes that change, I don't know, like some things are, maybe can happen within our lifetimes. And others, it's like you continuously just hope and believe that it's there. I think that, like believing it's possible, believing that the change can exist, whether or not we see it. So just thinking about like, you know, more recently working with the school district, which has been a community effort across multiple partners, you know, across, you know, in Juneau, you know, many organizations that help lift it. How do we engage with the school district? And we have done a few efforts, and I don't know if we want to get into the specifics of that, but just thinking about like that, having conversations around race, racism, creating the capacity for, or just into the room with like, can we all agree that racism exists? And just, yeah, so it gets complex because you never know like where people stand, but it's that sort of, I think with this current round of, you know, what we did with the school district, you know, having a great team of, you know, 20 people just stepping in, I think that in itself was, you know, it's hard when, well, it was just beautiful to see people come together with the belief and with the sort of like, you know, commitment to each other, like we're gonna do this. And so so it's like moments like that. And that's, you know, it's not all the time, you know, there's, you know, we create smaller moments, whether it's more interpersonal, whether it's like a small gathering or engaging with the coalition. How do we bring in knowledge from, you know, whether it's the Southeast or just like local knowledge that's here, and how do we just do things together? Like, how do we create the an environment where it just like feels different? You get a glimpse of the world, you know, whether or not, you know, that's the hope. It's like whether, but it's like, how do you get a glimpse of the world that's just where we're upholding like respect and just like genuine connection and just really learning from the land. Like, you know, that's something that I'm learning, which I didn't know that I had access to. And, you know, everyone's experiences are different, but that was my experience. And so it's really like, for me, it's like, how do I introduce myself to the gifts of the world? And there's already people doing that. So it's like, how do we bring in those people? How do we bring in those people to share their knowledge, to share their, whatever, their stories? And through that, like when you put people first, or center the experiences of people most marginalized, or, you know, based on their experience and their identities, or just their histories and connection to the land, or just everything. Like, how do you center that person, you know, in a way that is respecting them, that is, you know, yeah, I can talk on and on about just like the experience overall, but yeah, those are just like some of the small moments, well, maybe not small moments, but those are some of the moments that we try to create and capture and continue, and it just looks differently because it's, yeah, you know, when we meeting with like coalition members, or just, you know, people like just connecting, versus how do we engage with this, like a school district, or how do you engage with yeah, like more organizations. Yeah, so it gets, we swim in a lot of different things, and maybe it's our pursuit to like where, like, you know, not wanting to just stay in one area, but it's like, you know, as we understand our capacity to do more, we try to do more, and then we learn, you know, we yeah, just, so I just think about like, and that's like built on the relationship of the people we've worked with. It's just like, wherever we see or hear something, it's like, can we do something? And usually it's yes, but it's like, how do we do it? But
I think you really said it when you said creating opportunities, right? And in that is the healing and the understanding and the figuring out ourselves and what our capacity is and what our needs are and what our community is, which I think a lot of coalitions do, right, as we're figuring it out. But I don't know that there are so many that maybe there is. No, I'm going to take that back. That healing component, right, in why we do a thing, and the helping and the working toward a good thing in the community. And I know of some really great work that Toóch Lichéesh has done, and so I whenever you're ready to share that, I think that is really critical, really important. And I'll just say, in being a part of that work, it has been healing for me. And what that healing is to understand how I feel about racism, and to understand what I feel mostly about internal racism, and how that's impacted my life, and what do I think this community and myself could benefit from, and just being a part of the solution, which has been healthy for me.
Well, we have loved sharing parts of this journey with you, Tina, and you know, getting to experience and witness some of the gifts that you bring to the community. And so thank you for sharing that. Well, I really appreciated that question about, like, what's the link between ending violence and decolonization? And I think it's absolutely, I mean, we understand that the root causes of violence are these systems of oppression. Those are the root causes of violence. And I believe it was Walter Soboleff who said that when you know who you are, you don't hurt yourself. You know, and we have experienced that, you know, what happens when we're in isolation and what happens when we're in connection. And when we create these spaces of connection and decolonization and healing, which includes accountability, you know, we have experienced ourselves and hear from our partners, like, this is the way forward. Because then we're able to show up in a way where we're not using violence where we're less likely to be using violence against ourselves, or we notice the ways that we're talking to ourselves or thinking about ourselves. And then we notice how we show up in relation with each other. You know, are we pulling power over? Are we doing lateral violence? Am I showing up with, you know, race privilege, or, you know, experiencing gender privilege? And, you know, and how do we do the healing and the accountability work so that we show up in those right relationships? And so I want to share with you this image, which is kind of a rough sketch. But I think it talks a little bit about some of our work. And so this is kind of a snapshot of our up and coming updated strategic plan. And, you know, we've talked about these 4 areas. So you can see at the roots is this commitment, across is this commitment of personal growth and transformation. And then the next layer of the work is always how we're centering relationships through it. And then above that is the learning of new things, different ways of knowing and being, learning from each other, learning from cultures that were, you know, experienced the worst forms of violence and colonization, and learning from the wisdom of those cultures and traditions, and then unlearning the aspects of patriarchy and colonization that we might uphold within ourselves and not even know it, but cause us harm. And then that last building block is building the collective future. So that's about how are we bringing that growth and that learning into systems change, larger change across the community. And we have 4 main pillars. So one is our desire to create this community of care. And that really has to do with a thriving coalition and opportunities for folks to be taking care of themselves and each other and in those right relationships. And then, how do I move that out of my way? And then this next bucket is around educational equity. And so David was just starting to talk about some of this work. In the last 2 months, we've done anti-racism in services with every school-based site within the district. We've done trainings with the school board, and we've started moving into some policy priority planning with the district around the change work that needs to happen to ensure that they're promoting cultural safety and equity. And then we have this pillar around uplifting survivors and wanting to hear the stories, the voices, the narratives of the brilliant strength, those voices that are often marginalized and silenced, wanting to create spaces both for healing opportunities, as well as lifting and sharing some of those stories and narratives. And then the last pillar is about accessible organizations. So again, you know, each institution, every institution has been impacted by these belief systems, these systems of colonization and patriarchy. And so how can each organization, all of our coalition partner organizations, my own organizations, continue to do that work to create change and transformation, to work closer towards that cultural safety and equity, that accessibility. And so we do, you know, we just did a really beautiful all-day training with SAIL, who's a coalition partner organization, who's in an ongoing journey to do that decolonization work. And so we work with organizations, our organization and other partner organizations to help, you know, and not because we know all the answers, right? Like we are humbly showing up with a lot of questions and a messy journey of learning, but a commitment to create that healing and that systems change that we believe will ultimately end domestic violence, sexual assault, suicide, many of the mental health implications that folks are faced with. Because, you know, these values that we all live amongst, they would make any well person sick. You can't thrive and be well when you live around violence and racism and sexism. And so we can't just heal ourselves and we can't effectively change the systems and the policies without very deeply rooting ourselves on the earth and amongst our own identities and the oppression or the privileges that we've experienced based on those identities. And, you know, so we work to create circles of connection so that together, you know, we believe that, you know, each of us holds a piece. We believe it's possible. We believe that each of us holds a piece of that puzzle. And I am going to share one more image with you. And this is our strategic plan. We had a really incredible multi-day gathering that was led by First Alaskans Institute and brought you know, about 25 of our key coalition partners together and you know, left with these tidbits of wisdoms, you know, this commitment to get calloused hands, you know, to really reflect on where our heart is most inspired to callous our hands, because that's where we're going to put the work in. And then, you know, letting sweetness fill all the cracks, and this commitment to lead with love to show up for each other, to show up for ourselves, and to keep coming back to that commitment to love. So that's a little snapshot of some of our efforts. And we do so many things. Like we have circles for men who are, you know, wanting to learn more about healing and accountability and how to stop using violence if they do use violence, how to understand how they've been impacted by patriarchy. We do support groups and create spaces for teens and young people. We're doing this BIPOC teen group every 2 weeks at the Zach Gordon. Over the years, we've partnered so closely with Sources of Strength and Teen Council and create opportunities for youth leadership initiatives. You know, we do work within our organization with other coalition organizations that are feeling ready for some of those conversations and efforts, and we keep learning as we go. So
I think, you know, I'm thinking about the values of courage and transformation, right? And it takes that courage to have that transformation, which makes sense of the brave spaces as well. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to, Ati, when you showed that image of the strategic planning, and the last one, the lead with love. So, and that's Colleen James had shared more information about like where that came from, and you know where leading with love originated. Valerie Davidson had mentioned that during, I believe, like a elders and youth conference, or I didn't go, but she was just telling the story. But so I don't know when, but just like leading with love, and how she said, when you lead with love, you are not alone. And so I think there's like that, yeah, just again, you know, centering relationships. You know, love looks differently across everyone, but how do we widen people's understanding of what love can look like? So it's just, and that's really what it is. It's kind of, you know, when you love yourself, when you love each other, when you, whatever that may look like, just like know that you're never alone. So it's just kind of that, like, yeah, like when I heard that sort of expanded understanding, I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Because even when I'm alone, or when I, you know, physically alone, I just like reminded of these different things of like, you know, love, even it's not, doesn't have to necessarily be even relation to like people. It's like love, just how the nuances and understanding of just how love can exist within just the earth, the land, and you know, I've heard as trees can be your grandparents, or like the mountains can be. So it's just all these things that I'm just reminded, and you know, and find comfort. Not to say it's, you know, it's that easy. I think it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of trust. Well, maybe trust first, but or both, whatever. But I just think about it's, you know, it's not that simple. But knowing that it's something as simple as as love in you know, in nature. But yeah, it's and that's, I think, everyone's journey in a way. And some people are just like, yeah, they're already on that journey. I'm definitely learning. I just went hunting last weekend for the first time. Yeah, Ati's face, you know, it's like, yeah, because I would normally not choose that, but I was like, you know what, I need to make more active approaches to like my relationship with you know, with this land, and learning. And so it was definitely a proud moment where I was just like, wow. But I had great trusted people around me to help. And but anyways, yeah, so it's still learning.
Congratulations, David. That's awesome. And thank you for sharing that, and honoring the wisdom of Valerie Davidson. Thank you for making that link for everyone. That was really so important.
So I wonder if we have questions from our viewers, like when do you meet, and how can we join, both for if the men's group is happening, and Toóch, Lichéesh, or any of the groups? How do we find out what's happening, and what we can participate in? How do we get signed up?
Well, if you share your email, we could add you to our listserv, so you would get our updates and newsletters. So that's one way. Another way would be to follow us on Facebook. And again, that's another place where we share opportunities. You know, post-COVID, I think for 3 months straight, we met every morning, Monday through Friday, to get centered and do healing practices together. And with the news of Breonna Taylor and the fires, and I'm hearing from some partners that they might be ready to re-engage in that regular healing space again. And so I think, yeah, Facebook and our newsletter, our listserv would be the 2 best ways. You can also always and anytime reach out directly to David or I. You know, we have the honor of holding the role of co-chair. And so we're another link in. And then, you know, different programs, there are different details about different programs. And so I would think that the best way, if there's a particular, you know, if you have a teen and you're looking for opportunities, or your organization is wanting to bring in some beautiful hosts and facilitators, you know, I think directly connecting with David or I would be a good way to make that link. And we welcome new members and new organizations, and we would want to take a moment to get grounded with you and help orient you in and welcome you into our beloved community of care. And so maybe we can, I don't know if we could put in the chat box, or what's the best way to share?
Yeah, if you could put that in your chat box, that would be great. And I will go over some comments that we have. I received a comment that said that an individual is explaining that when we feed our spiritual self, then we don't want to hurt ourselves, which I think is so very, very true. So that was just a comment that came from the question. But if you would put your stuff in the chat box, and unfortunately our hour is up, and we have but for our viewers, you'll be able to come back and refer to this as well. So you'll be able to see how to get a hold of Ati and David at Toóch, Lichéesh, either through their Facebook or online through their website. And Ati and David, I want to thank you both for being with us today. And we really appreciate all of the efforts. Great, many, many things. I know that your hands are in a lot of different programs and a lot of efforts and doing a lot of lifting. And we really appreciate that. So thank you for joining us. And tomorrow, what we're going to do is we are going to hear what exactly is it that the NAMI Juno and Juno Suicide Prevention Coalition do. So please come back and join us for that. And really a lot of this, the work that you all do is that prevention part, and doing this work together is what keeps us safe. It's what keeps us well. So again,
Lichéesh, thank you for inviting us.
Yes,
and,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the important work that you guys are doing across this community. We're grateful for you and so happy to know that you're out there doing all the things. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. And maybe I'll jump on the Facebook. It looks like there's some questions there. So I'll start to answer those Facebook questions.
That would be great, yes. Yeah. If we didn't get them transferred over, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.